Here's my review of Fallout Season 2, Episode 1 through 3. Yeah, I'm a little behind. I was originally going to review this episode by episode, and I still want to do that, but as of now, I just kind of fell behind. I couldn't catch up, so I watched all the first 3 episodes. So I'm going to be talking about all of them here. And I do have like the same general thoughts overall, because that's the thing with like a show like this. Although this does have like a through line throughout the episodes, it does like in each episode has its own stuff going on. Like when you're talking about the show as a whole, I still just really like it. I don't think it's as off to as strong a start as episode or as season 1, but it's still pretty solid. First things first, it's just fun to see these characters again. Just seeing Lucy and the ghoul interact is just a lot of fun, and they haven't really skipped a beat. Lucy's still her very hopelessly optimistic self, and the ghoul be very pessimistic, nihilistic, but we understand why. We understand why Cooper is the way he is. And it's just nice to be back in this world. And just seeing more of the flashbacks with Cooper, like when he's talking to people and how they kind of know what's really going on with the government. I mean, this was a honored like war veteran, and like him just seeing how the government is like infiltrated. They're talking about like the Red Scare. It's really fun. Like there's so much intrigue. Although, like I said, I didn't really think it was. Although I do think it was kind of the weakest of the first 3 episodes. It was still solid. And there's just a lot of intrigue of whether we're learning more about like what's going on with Lucy's dad, like him being involved in mind control. We see some scenes with rats, and there's a lot of just stuff where like, okay, what's going on, and it sets up a bunch of stuff that is interesting, but I just didn't think the episode as a whole was that great. And then there's like a whole other plot back in the bunker where Norm, who's talking to the brain, and the brain keeps trying to convince him to go in the pod until he eventually tricks it. Like that part's compelling, but just overall, like this episode as a whole, it was solid, but it just wasn't as good as I wish it was. And then going into episode 2, it was another like solid episode. I think that one thing that was really good about episode 2 was there was a scene where they're in this store, and there's a woman being attacked, and Lucy chooses to save the woman over the ghoul, just showing how she is just overall a really good person. And I thought that was one of my favorite scenes of the show so far. Well, this season. Like the whole really cool action scene with the scorpion was awesome. And of course, during all this, you still have Maximus's storyline, which just like in the first season, I just don't find it as compelling. Like there's some cool stuff here, like him trying to rise in the ranks, but it's just compared to the other stuff that's going on with Lucy, it's just not as it's not bad, and it's cool seeing some flashbacks of him, but it's just not nearly as intriguing. But going into episode 3, I think it's easily the best. Just learning about this like new faction, and Macaulay Culkin's in this, where basically I'm pretty sure he calls himself Caesar, obviously representing Julius Caesar and with the Roman armor. That was just so much fun. And that's kind of like what I like about the show, just seeing what are like during this apocalypse, what are different groups of people doing? Like, what are the survivors doing? What are their factions? What are their beliefs? Why? When? How many? It's just, there's so much intrigue. And I thought that this was easily the best episode of the season. And when Lucy does get captured, I think that it's a really great scene because still she keeps her optimism. And there's a great scene where the ghoul saves her, and there's an awesome action scene to go along with it. And it just kind of overall shows like how the ghoul is slowly, but surely just improving as a person. And that's just great to see. It's really the dynamic between these two that really make the show. Like, I love the overall aesthetic and the look, but I think, and I had the same problem with season 1, is Lucy and the ghoul are both so fascinating. I think just the other characters, it really just kind of drags the show down, and I wish that they were as compelling as, and I understand that it's needed for the story, but I just wish that they were as interesting and as fun as Lucy and the ghoul, because it's really their relationship that just makes it so much fun to watch. And episode 3 also has a lot of intrigue with the flashbacks of him bargaining, or not necessarily bargaining, of Cooper, just his involvement with the anti-war, like, people, and showing how he really was this good person. And that part is really compelling because it just allows for our current Cooper, who's the ghoul, to just stand out even more. How there's such a fall from grace as a character that's just so beautiful and tragic to watch. And I think that Maximus in episode 3 also gets a lot to do here as well, of him saving these ghoul children. There's a lot of really great and sweet scenes, which is what I like about the show, is it has, the premise of the show is quite depressing, but it is viewed in the narrative, has this just classic optimistic vibe to it that I love. And I think that episode 3, like I said, I had problems with the first 2 episodes. I think that's where it's like, although I enjoyed season 1 all the way through, I think this season it was having some problems, but I think that episode 3, towards the end of episode 2 into episode 3, is when this show found its footing, or at least this season. Yeah, so overall, I thought this season, I don't think it's off to a great start. I put it off to a good start. And that's just because I really, really enjoyed episode 3. From Lucy's capture to the ghoul saving her, to Maximus saving the ghoul children, it was just filled with so many great character arcs. And of course, Macaulay Culkin's a little area of him being Caesar of his little faction was just great. So overall, I think that this season is off to a good start. Not a great start like I think the first season one. I mean, of course, obviously, first season, I binged that all in one day. But this season, I think so far is good, just not great like I thought the first season one. But I'm hoping it gets better with each episode. And overall, I'd give it a 7 out of 10, where I would give the first season a 9. But maybe a 6. I would give this maybe a 6. But it's still really good overall. Just I had some problems with the first 2 episodes, but episode 3, the end of episode 2 and just all of episode 3, kind of was okay, this is kind of getting a move on. This is getting good, and I'm hoping that they continue.